Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, so picture this. You found what looks like the perfect apartment listing, maybe online, in an English-speaking country. That initial excitement, but then maybe a bit of panic.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling, you know you need to call, like right now, before someone else snaps it up.
Exactly. And suddenly all that English you learned, it just evaporates. You're scrambling, thinking, how do I even ask the basic stuff? Never mind negotiating something as huge as a lease.
Right. And that moment, that kind of linguistic freeze up,
Right.
that's exactly what we're here to tackle today.
So what's the plan?
Our mission really is to take you from feeling, totally overwhelmed to feeling completely in control.
Confident.
Across the entire rental process.
Okay.
Right. And we're not just throwing phrases at you. This is more like a shortcut to competence so you can actually master this really important life event.
And we're using our special deep dive structure for this, right? The 2-level approach.
That's the one. We find it really helps create those aha moments for you as you learn. So level 1 is what we call the essentials.
Right, the survival guide.
Exactly. Think of it as your A2 to B1 level toolkit. It's the absolute must-know language to get your foot in the door. Making that first call, asking the price, getting that viewing scheduled, no stress.
Okay, the basics covered, then what?
Then, once you've got that foundation solid, once you feel, okay, I can handle the first contact, we switch gears. Big time.
Into level 2.
Into level 2, the master class. This is where we hit the C1 advanced stuff. We'll be diving deep into like the more complex vocabulary, the legal terms in a lease, how to ask really strategic financial questions.
And negotiation tactics.
And the language that really fluent speakers use to get the best terms and, crucially, protect themselves legally.
So it's a full package, really. Level 1 for the immediate hurdle.
Yeah, overcome that initial anxiety. And then level 2 becomes your roadmap to being, well, not just a tenant, but a knowledgeable, respected, fully prepared one. It's the difference between just asking questions and demanding proper due diligence.
Okay, I like it. Let's start that journey then, right at the very beginning. You've seen the ad, heart's pounding a bit. You need to make that call now. Let's get those essential first tools ready. All right, level 1. That first call or email, probably the point of highest anxiety for a lot of people. You're reaching out to the landlord or maybe more often the agent, right? The person managing it all.
Yeah, usually an agent.
Yeah.
And you need an opening line that's just clear, direct, no messing about.
Because time is often critical in renting.
Totally. You don't want to waste their time or yours. So the absolute essential sentence, just this. Hello, I'm calling about the apartment for rent on street name.
Simple, effective. But let's break that down. Why is mentioning the specific street name, say Oak Street, so much better than just saying the 2-bedroom apartment I saw?
It's purely practical. Think about it, that agent. They might be juggling, 20, 50, even 100 different properties.
Yeah.
All over the place.
Yeah.
If you just say your ad online, they're thinking, which ad? Which property? You force them to stop, search, maybe ask you more questions just to figure out what you want.
Wasting precious time.
Exactly. But if you say ad on Oak Street, bam, they can usually pull it up straight away. It just makes everything smoother, shows you're organized too, respects their time.
That's a great point. A small detail, but it sets a good tone. Okay, what if they don't pick up? Voicemail. That can be intimidating too.
Super common, especially in busy markets. Your voicemail needs to be just as clear, maybe even clearer.
So what do you say?
Keep it brief and include the essentials. Something like, hello, my name is your name. I'm calling about the apartment for rent on street name. My number, your phone number. Please call me back when you can about its availability.
Got it. Reason for calling, the specific place, how to get back to you. Simple.
Fast, effective. That's the goal.
Okay, contact made, maybe you got them on the phone or they called back. What's the very next thing you need to know?
Before anything else, you got to check it hasn't already gone.
Right. The ad might still be up, but someone else could have signed the papers minutes ago.
Exactly. So the simple, direct question is it still available? That's it.
Yeah.
It just means, has it been rented already or can I still apply?
And if they say yes, it is available. Phew. Okay, now we can talk money.
Now money. The big one, obviously, is how much is the rent per month? Everyone asks that.
But the smart A2 or B1 level speaker knows rent isn't the whole story, right? There are other costs.
Oh, definitely. You need to understand the total cost. So the next crucial question is, are utilities included?
Okay, let's define utilities clearly. What does that usually cover?
Good point. We're talking about things like electricity, water, Gas may be for heating or the stove, and sometimes the internet is bundled in, sometimes not.
And this can make a huge difference to your monthly budget.
Huge. Could be hundreds of dollars easily. If utilities are included, great. Your main cost is fixed.
Yeah.
But if you're not, well, you need to know that straight away.
So if the answer is no, utilities are separate, what's the next logical question for someone using the survival guide?
You'd want to know about the setup. How does it work? You could ask something like, okay, so will I need to set up my own account with the electricity company? Or maybe, are the accounts already active, or do I need to arrange connection myself?
Ah, that's important. You don't want to move in and find the lights don't work because you missed a step.
Exactly. Avoid that day one panic.
Okay, price clarified, utility situation understood. It still sounds promising. Now you need to actually see the place. You can't rent blind.
Nope. You need to visit. And that visit has a specific name in English rentals.
Right. You mentioned it's called
A viewing. Sometimes, less commonly, maybe an inspection, but viewing is the standard term.
So how do you ask for one politely but efficiently?
Couple of good options. You could say, I would like to see the apartment. When is a good time to visit? That's perfectly fine.
Or maybe a bit more direct.
Yeah, or you could be slightly more formal and efficient. Can I schedule a viewing, please? Maybe add when you're free, like I'm available tomorrow afternoon. Using schedule a viewing shows you understand the process.
Agents probably appreciate that directness.
Yeah.
Okay, fast forward. You got the viewing, you're standing inside the apartment. What are the absolute essential things you need to ask right there and then?
Okay, first, logistics. Think about your stuff. You must ask, is the apartment furnished or unfurnished?
Big difference. Define furnished quickly.
Furnished usually means it comes with the basics: bed, maybe a sofa, table, chairs, probably major kitchen appliances like a fridge and cooker. Unfurnished means empty. You bring everything.
So budget implications right there for moving vans, buying furniture.
Huge implications. Ask that first. Then think about the practicalities of living there day to day.
Like what? Beyond just the rooms themselves.
Yeah, things that really affect your life, like transport. How close is the nearest bus stop or train station? If you drive, parking is massive. Is there parking included? Is it on the street? Do we need a permit?
Oh yeah, parking permits can be expensive or hard to get. Good one. What about noise? How do you ask about potentially noisy neighbors without sounding difficult?
You keep it neutral. Ask about the building's general feel. Maybe. What's the noise level generally like, especially evenings or weekends? Or perhaps, is it mostly quiet here? Or are there, say, families upstairs? Get a feel for the vibe.
Good way to phrase it. Okay, one last essential for level 1, focusing on money again. The upfront costs.
Yes. The security deposit. You absolutely have to ask about this.
Remind us what that is exactly.
It's a sum of money, often equal to 1 month's rent, sometimes even 2, that you pay at the very beginning. The landlord holds on to it.
Like insurance for them.
Pretty much. Insurance against you causing damage or not paying your rent. If you leave the place in good condition and paid everything, you should get it back when you move out.
So the essential question is simply,
how much is the security deposit? You need that number because you'll likely have to pay that plus the first month's rent all at once just to get the keys. It massively impacts whether you can actually afford to move in right now.
okay, this level 1 toolkit feels really solid. We've got making the call, using the street name, handling voicemail, checking, is it still available? Understanding rent versus are utilities included, arranging the viewing and asking about furnished or unfurnished, practicals like parking, and the crucial security deposit amount.
Exactly. That's the core set. With those phrases and questions, you can confidently handle those initial, often nerve-wracking steps.
That confidence is key, knowing you have the right words.
It's the foundation. But like we said, the goal isn't just to survive the first chat. It's about mastering the whole process, getting the best deal, protecting yourself.
Which means,
for those of you feeling ready, we're now going to shift gears completely. Level up.
let's do it. Time for level 2. The masterclass. Okay, level 2. The whole mindset changes here, doesn't it? You're not just someone hoping they like you enough to give you the apartment.
Not at all. You are now a prospective tenant. You're conducting serious research due diligence on what is a significant financial and legal commitment. And your language needs to reflect that shift. More professional, more formal.
So that initial call, we had the A2 version. I'm calling about the apartment. How does the C1 speaker elevate that opening?
It becomes much more polished, more precise. Listen to the difference. Good morning, afternoon. I'm calling in reference to the 1-bedroom listing on Oak Street I saw advertised on platform name, AG Rightmove Zillow. I was hoping you could confirm its availability and perhaps provide a few more details.
Okay, let's unpack that. In reference to the listing, instead of about the apartment, sounds much more formal.
It does. It signals this is a professional inquiry. Using listing is also more specific than apartment.
And mentioning the platform, advertise on Rightmove, why add that?
Shows you're organized. It also helps the agent track where their leads are coming from, which they appreciate. It subtly says, I pay attention to details.
And the closing bit, I was hoping you could.
It's a very polite, almost slightly indirect way to ask for information in professional English. It sounds less demanding than, can you tell me? But it's still clear you expect information.
Yeah.
It opens the door smoothly for your next questions.
Nice. Okay, moving on to costs again. Level 1 was, are utilities included?
Level 2 needs to go way deeper. It's about real budget planning.
Exactly. This is about strategic financial savvy. You shift from hoping they're included to assuming they probably are, and then trying to get actual data.
So what's the killer question here?
You frame it acknowledging your responsibility. I understand that tenants are typically responsible for utilities here. Could you possibly give me a rough estimate of the average monthly costs for, say, gas and electricity? Perhaps based on the previous tenant's usage.
Whoa, asking for previous tenants' usage. Is that common? Will agents actually tell you that?
That's a really good question. They might push back. They might say they can't share that for privacy reasons, or maybe they just don't know.
So why ask? Several reasons. First, asking for a rough estimate is less demanding than asking for exact bills. Second, even if they can't give you a number, how they respond tells you something.
Like how transparent or helpful they are.
Precisely. Are they trying to help you budget, or are they being evasive? Third, it clearly signals you're a serious, responsible tenant who plans their finances carefully. You're not going to be surprised by the first heating bill.
So it's as much about signaling your competence and gauging their attitude as it is about getting a perfect number. Makes sense. Is there an even higher level of due diligence on costs if you really wanted to push?
Well, you could, although it's less common. Ask if it's possible to see anonymized copies of recent utility bills. Maybe phrase it like, to help me budget accurately, would the landlord potentially allow sight of the last quarter's utility bills, with personal details removed, of course?
That feels quite advanced. C1, bordering on C2, maybe.
It is. You'd need a good reason, and they might well refuse, but it shows extreme diligence.
Okay. Beyond the money, the C1 speaker is also assessing the living experience, the quality of the management, the building atmosphere.
Right. You're thinking long-term. Is this a place I'll be happy? Is the management responsive if things go wrong?
So how do you probe the community feel without sounding nosy?
You use slightly more sophisticated language. Instead of, is it noisy? You might ask about the general vibe or the demographic. Like, what's the general vibe of the building? Is the demographic mostly, say, young professionals or perhaps more families?
Using demographic. That's smart. It gets the information about noise and lifestyle implicitly.
Exactly. It's about understanding the likely atmosphere, lively social scene versus quiet residential feel without making judgments.
Okay, and the other big one. What happens when something breaks? The C1 speaker doesn't just hope for the best.
No way. You investigate the system. The level 1 question is who fixes things. The C1 question is about the protocol.
How would you phrase that?
Something like, what is the protocol for reporting maintenance issues? For example, is there a dedicated superintendent on site? Or is everything managed through an online portal? And if so, what's the typical response time for urgent versus non-urgent requests?
Oh, asking about response times. That's key.
It tells you everything. Is it organized? Do they have service level agreements? Or is it just, email the landlord and hope for the best?
A vague answer there would be a huge red flag.
Massive red flag about how professional the management is.
Yeah.
These kinds of strategic questions really set you apart. You're not just looking for a place to live. You're assessing a service provider and a community before you commit. Tag 3. Scrutinizing the lease agreement and formal communication.
All right. This feels like the peak of the mountain. You've done the viewing, asked the smart questions, they like you like the place, and now they send over the lease agreement.
This is it, the moment of truth. And this is where the difference between just, getting by in English and being truly proficient becomes crystal clear. Because the C1 level speaker understands this isn't just a formality. The lease. It's a serious, legally binding contract. You don't just skim it and sign, you scrutinize it. Every single clause.
The stakes are incredibly high. You're committing potentially thousands, tens of thousands of dollars over the term. And your home is involved.
Exactly. This document defines your rights, your responsibilities, the landlord's responsibilities. Verbal promises mean almost nothing once this is signed. It's what's written that counts.
Okay, so let's talk specifics. A long contract, like a 12-month lease, feels very binding. What's the most important clause for adding some flexibility?
Without a doubt, you need to look for and understand the break clause.
Explain that. What does a break clause do?
Okay, so imagine you sign a fixed 12-month lease. A break clause is a specific term within that lease that allows either you, the tenant, or sometimes the landlord, to end the tenancy early before the 12 months are up without facing huge penalties.
So it's an escape hatch.
Kind of, but it always has conditions. Typically, it might say you can break the lease after, say, the first 6 months, provided you give a certain amount of notice, like 2 months written notice.
Okay, so if I sign for 12 months, lose my job in month 7, if there's no break clause, I'm in trouble.
Big trouble. Legally, you could be on the hook for the entire remaining rent months 8 through 12, even if you move out, unless the landlord manages to find a suitable replacement tenant really quickly, which isn't guaranteed.
Wow. But with a break clause allowing termination after 6 months with 2 months' notice.
Then, in month 7, you give your 2 months' notice, pay until the end of month 9, and you're free and clear. It's massive protection against unexpected life events, job loss, family emergency, anything.
So checking this is non-negotiable. How do you ask about it using that precise C1 language we're aiming for?
You know the terminology. You'd say something like, I'd like to clarify the terms of the break clause, please. Does this agreement include one? And if so, could you confirm if it allows for early termination by the tenant, potentially after 6 months, and what the required notice period would be?
Using clarify, terms, break clause, early termination, notice period. That language signals you know exactly what you're looking for.
It signals competence and that you're reading carefully.
Okay, next big area in the lease, money again. Specifically, the security deposit you paid up front. Leases always say the landlord can deduct for damages. This sounds like a major source of arguments.
It's probably the single biggest point of friction when tenants move out. And this is where the C1 speaker needs to introduce some crucial legal-ish nuance. You have to understand the difference between normal wear and tear and actual tenant-inflicted damage.
Okay, that sounds important. Can you give clear examples of each? Where's the line?
Sure. Normal wear and tear is the unavoidable minor decline that happens just from living normally in a property over time. Think maybe faint scuff marks on walls where furniture rested, carpets looking slightly worn in hallways, perhaps the door handle getting a bit loose. Stuff that happens through normal use. Landlords cannot charge you for this.
Right. That's just the cost of doing business for them.
Exactly. Actual damage, on the other hand, is due to negligence, accidents, or deliberate actions, like a hole punched in a wall, deep cigarette burns on a kitchen counter, a badly stained carpet from spilling red wine and not cleaning it, or, breaking a window. That you can be charged for.
That distinction is vital for getting your deposit back. So the C1 move isn't just understanding this, it's trying to get it clarified in the lease itself.
Ideally, yes. It's proactive protection. You don't want to argue about scuff marks a year later. You want the standard defined now.
How do you propose that without sounding adversarial?
You frame it collaboratively, focusing on clarity. I see the lease mentions deductions for damages, which is standard. To ensure we both have a clear understanding, could we perhaps add a sentence clarifying how normal wear and tear, consistent with, say, the guidelines from the local tenancy authority, will be differentiated from actual tenant-inflicted damage?
Referencing a local tenancy authority guidelines, that's clever. It anchors it to an objective standard.
It shows you've done your homework, and you're appealing to a fair external standard, not just your own opinion. It sets a professional tone for handling the deposit return right from day one.
That is absolutely controlling the narrative. Fantastic. Okay, what about making changes? Say you hate the color of one wall and want to paint it. You can't just do that, right? You need permission for alterations.
Absolutely not. Any change, even seemingly minor like painting, usually needs written permission. The C1 approach is to ask properly, framing it responsibly.
What's the language that shows respect but asks for flexibility?
You'd be formal and reassuring. Something like, regarding potential alterations to the property, I was wondering if the landlord might be amenable to me painting one wall in the living room, perhaps a neutral shade. Naturally, I would undertake to fully restore it to its original condition at my own expense before moving out. Would that be acceptable, provided we document this agreement in writing?
Okay, key vocabulary there. Alterations. Amenable, meaning agreeable or open to it. Restore. Very professional. But that last bit, provided it's documented in writing, why is that phrase so critical?
Because a verbal, yeah, sure, go ahead, from the agent or landlord is almost worthless legally if there's a dispute later.
Really?
Absolutely. They can easily forget. Or a new property manager might take over who doesn't know. When you move out, they see a painted wall not matching the original spec, and boom, they deduct the repainting costs from your deposit.
Even if they said it was okay.
If it's not in writing as an addendum or amendment to the lease, you'll have a hard time proving it. Insisting it's documented in writing creates a formal record that protects you. It's C1 level risk management. Wow. Okay. Final scenario. Crisis time. It's winter, the heating dies. The A2 reaction might be a frantic, maybe angry call. My heating's broken. How does the C1 tenant handle this?
Calmly, formally, and by leveraging the contract. Remember, essential services like heating are usually a landlord's legal responsibility to maintain. Your communication needs to reflect that.
So not just a complaint, but a formal notification.
Precisely. Preferably in writing, like an email, to create a time-stamped record. It needs structure.
Break down that structure for us. Let's say the heating failed this morning.
Okay. Step 1. Formal opening and specificity. Start clearly. I am writing to formally notify you of a significant maintenance issue at your apartment address unit number, specifically concerning the heating. This issue arose on date.
Clear, dated, serious tone. Got it. Step 2. State the problem objectively. No drama, just facts. The central heating system appears to have ceased functioning entirely. The internal temperature is currently mentioned temperature possible, example, 14 degrees C and falling, which I understand is below acceptable habitable standards during winter.
Facts, maybe reference objective standards.
Okay. Step 3. Invoke the lease. This is the crucial C1 power play. As per clause, find the relevant clause number, for example, 12 of our signed tenancy agreement, which outlines the landlord's obligation to maintain essential services, including heating, in good repair.
Reminding them of their contractual duty.
Exactly. You're not just asking nicely, you're pointing to the legal basis for your request. Step 4. Polite but firm call to action. You need a resolution time frame. I would appreciate it if you could inform me by the end of today what steps are being taken to address this urgent matter and provide an estimated time frame for when a qualified engineer can attend and restore the heating.
Wow. That combination, formal notice, objective facts, referencing the lease clause, and requesting a clear action plan and timeline, that's hard to ignore.
It's polite, professional, but utterly firm. It places the responsibility squarely on them, referencing their legal obligation. It puts you in control of the situation by demonstrating, your rights and the contract. That's the pinnacle of using language effectively in this context. #tag outro.
Okay, what a journey. We've really covered the spectrum from those first tentative steps in the A2 survival guide to the really assertive, legally aware strategies of the C1 masterclass.
We really have. We started right back at the basics, didn't we? Just getting that first call right, remembering to use the specific street name, knowing to ask, is it still available, and how to arrange that crucial viewing.
Yeah, the absolute essentials to get you through the door. And then we climbed up to level 2, focusing on that strategic thinking, asking for that rough estimate of utility costs based on previous usage. That was a great tip.
And assessing the management properly, asking about their maintenance protocol and response times, thinking beyond just the apartment itself.
But the real core, I think, was the deep dive into the lease agreement, understanding the power of clarifying the break clause for flexibility.
Absolutely vital. And perhaps most importantly, learning how to proactively discuss and maybe even define the difference between tenant damage and that unavoidable normal wear and tear. That can save you real money.
So the big takeaway here, it seems, isn't just learning a list of phrases. It's about how mastering this more formal, more precise, sometimes legally aware language changes the whole dynamic.
Completely. It shifts you from being, just another applicant hoping they get picked to being perceived as a knowledgeable, confident, and frankly respected individual engaging in a serious contractual discussion.
You're not passive anymore. You're an active participant, securing the place you want, but on the best possible terms for you.
And that skill, that ability to assert yourself clearly, formally, referencing documentation and agreements, that's transferable, isn't it? It goes way beyond renting an apartment.
You mean?
Well, think about it. The confidence and control that comes from scrutinizing a lease, asking precise questions, ensuring things are documented in writing. That's the same toolkit you need for negotiating a job offer, understanding a business contract, maybe even making a major financial investment.
That's a powerful thought. So the final challenge for you, the listener, is maybe to think about that. This focus we've discussed on due diligence, on clear documentation, on using precise language to control the terms. How could you apply that same C1 level approach to the next significant agreement or negotiation in your life, whatever it might be?
Because mastering that process, that way of thinking and communicating, that's a skill that truly empowers you far beyond just finding a place to live. Okay, let's dive in. We've all had that moment, right? You find the perfect apartment, you sign the lease, get the keys, feels like you've crossed the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. But we both know signing that contract, that's really just the starting gun.
Exactly. The real challenge, the part where renting gets tricky and maybe stressful, is dealing with all the stuff that happens after you move in.
Things like, the oven packing it in right before a big holiday dinner, or the classic noisy neighbor issue. Maybe they pick up the cello at 11 p.m.
Been there, or the big one. Making absolutely sure you get that security deposit back when it's time to leave. That's where tenants often lose out.
Right. And that's precisely what we're tackling today.
We want to give you a kind of shortcut to feeling confident in these situations. We've looked at a whole stack of sources, legal guides, tenant advocacy stuff, best practices from property managers.
And we structured this deep dive into 2 clear levels, sort of like upgrading your communication toolkit.
Yeah, think of it like that. So part 1 is what we're calling the essentials. This is your A to B1 level language. Clear, polite, simple phrases for, like 90% of the common stuff. Gets the job done fast.
Quick and efficient. But then
we shift gears completely. Part 2 is the advanced masterclass. C1 level. This is where we go beyond just asking nicely.
Right. We're talking formal language, strategic documentation, knowing the actual legal concepts you need to handle disputes effectively, push for real action, and protect your rights and your money.
It's this shift, isn't it, from just being a tenant asking for help to becoming, as you put it, an empowered resident.
Exactly. You stop just asking for a favor and you start asserting your contractual rights. We're going to show you how using specific words backed up by solid proof really gives you leverage.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with those basics. How to be a good, clear communicator right from the start. All right, first up, the everyday maintenance thing. Something's broken. Let's use the classic example from our sources. The kitchen sink is blocked. You need it fixed, like yesterday.
Okay, the main goal here, clarity and making it easy for the landlord or manager to act. When you report something, they basically need 3 things right away. Who are you? Where are you? What's wrong?
Keep it simple. No need for a long story, especially not in that first call or email. You want action.
Precisely. Be precise.
So the script we distilled is super straightforward. Gets right to the point. Something like, hello, this is your name and apartment, your number. My kitchen sink is blocked. Can you please send someone to fix it?
Yeah, that's the core. And if it's really impacting your day-to-day, like a blocked sink, no hot water, toilet won't flush, you might add urgently or immediately.
But use that carefully, right? Not for every little thing.
Exactly. Don't cry wolf. But for something like a blocked sink, it's justified. Why this simple script works is it's just efficient. Gives them the data points. No waffle.
And being direct and polite signals you're organized, which maybe counterintuitively can sometimes mean they respond faster.
It often does. Clarity pays off.
Okay, moving on. The noisy neighbor. This one takes a bit more tact. Emotional intelligence, maybe?
Definitely. Tenant guides are pretty clear on this. Unless it's something illegal or threatening, don't jump straight to the landlord. Try talking to the neighbor first.
Right, because most of the time it's probably best resolved directly, person to person. People often just don't realize they're being loud.
Yeah, the goal is to solve the problem, not start a war in the hallway, so you've got to approach it softly. No demands.
And the sources gave us a really good phrase for this. It kind of softens the whole interaction, makes it less confrontational.
It does. You knock, you're friendly, maybe even a little apologetic for bothering them.
Excuse me, I'm your neighbor from downstairs next door, so sorry to bother you, but the music TV is a bit loud and I'm finding it hard to sleep work. Would you mind turning it down a bit?
That exact phrase, would you mind? That's the key. It's polite everywhere.
It frames it as a request between neighbors, not an order.
Exactly. It's about sharing the space respectfully. If you go in hot, like, turn that racket down, well, you've just made an enemy, and the problem probably won't get solved.
That, would you mind? It really is the magic phrase for getting cooperation, isn't it? Sets a good tone.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's jump ahead. You're planning to move out. The basics of giving notice. This sounds simple, but messing it up can cost you real money.
It has to be in writing.
Azu.
Two, I mean, a phone call, a chat in the corridor, worthless as proof.
Leaves no trace. If the landlord forgets or claims they forgot, you're on the hook. An email is usually fine these days.
But always check your lease, right? Some are still old school and might demand certified mail.
Good point. Always check the contract and the script for the notice itself. Keep it purely functional.
Something like, "Dear landlord's name, this email is just to inform you that I'll be moving out of apartment. Your number on date. Please accept this as my formal written notice."
Clean and simple. But here's the crucial bit, the detail that really protects you. Check that notice period in your lease. So important. We often assume it's 30 days. Yeah.
Often it is. But 60-day notice periods are becoming much more common, especially if you're on a fixed-term lease.
And if your lease says 60 days and you only give 30,
You could owe them another month's rent. Even if you've moved out, keys handed back, everything, they can legally charge you based on the contract.
ouch. So rule number 1, read the contract details. Never assume.
Never assume. Which brings us neatly to the last essential step, which kind of tees up the advanced stuff. Getting that security deposit back starts with arranging the final inspection.
Yes, the move-out inspection or final walkthrough, the moment of truth.
You definitely want to be there for that. Or have someone you trust represent you. You need to see what they see, address things on the spot if possible.
Prevents nasty surprises after you've left.
Right. And you need to ask 2 key questions to manage expectations and, importantly, lock down a timeline for getting your money back.
Okay, what are they?
First, when can we schedule the final inspection? Pin down that date and time.
Got it. Second, right after the inspection, while you're still there ideally, based on what we've seen today, when should I expect to receive my security deposit back?
Why is that second question so important?
Because in many places, there are actual laws about how quickly landlords have to return the deposit or provide a written list of deductions. Asking the question puts them on notice that you know this and expect them to comply.
Okay, so that covers the basics, the essentials. For most people, most of the time, if you're in a reasonably well-run building, those A2 phrases, they'll see you through probably 90% of situations smoothly.
Yeah, you've been polite, clear, you've done what's needed.
But what about when that's not enough? What about that tricky 10%, the problems that keep coming back, the situations where things get a bit adversarial?
Right. This is where it gets, well, really interesting. As you said, we have to completely shift gears. We're moving from that A2 level, making simple, helpful requests, up to C1.
And C1 is different how?
It's about formal documentation. It's about using specific legal language. It's about protecting your financial stake in this. It's a whole different mindset.
That mindset shift sounds key. You're not just a customer reporting a problem anymore.
Exactly. You're an equal party in a legally binding contract.
Yeah.
You stop being purely reactive, oh no, the sink's blocked again, and you become strategic, documented, professional.
So the language changes too. We ditch the soft stuff like, would you mind?
We do. We start using precise, almost legalistic terms. Words like habitability, covenant, quiet enjoyment. This isn't just about sounding smart, it's about signaling something important.
What's it signaling?
It signals that you understand your rights under the lease and under the law. It signals that the landlord is potentially breaching their obligations. It signals, frankly, that you're prepared to take further action if needed.
Let's think about the impact. Say I'm a property manager. I get an email. My sink is blocked. Please fix it. What happens?
Okay, standard procedure. It goes into the maintenance queue, probably gets assigned to the next available handyman. Routine stuff.
Now, same problem, but the email says, this is the 3rd time this sink is blocked in 2 months. This recurring issue is impacting the habitability of my apartment. What happens now?
Totally different response. That word habitability, that's a legal trigger. It likely bypasses the standard queue. It might get flagged for a supervisor, maybe even their legal department.
Why? What does habitability actually mean in this context?
Legally, it refers to the landlord's duty to keep the property in a safe and livable condition. Things like working plumbing, heating, safe structure, no infestations. A recurring failure of something essential like plumbing. That directly challenges the habitability.
So using that word forces their hand.
It puts them on formal notice. They know that failing to address a documented habitability issue quickly, often within a legally defined time frame, like 24, 72 hours, depending on the issue, and local laws could open the door for you to take action.
Like what?
Things like repair and deduct, where you fix it yourself and take the cost off the rent, or even rent abatement, reducing your rent payment legally. Depends on local laws, of course.
Wow. So that one word transforms it from an inconvenience for me into a potential legal and financial headache for them.
Precisely. That's the power of using the right C1 language, backed by documentation. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how that works for specific complex problems.
Okay, let's go back to that broken sink. But now it's not just a one-off clog. Let's imagine it's a recurring problem. The drain keeps blocking, maybe the heating keeps failing in winter. The quick fixes clearly aren't working. They're insufficient.
Right. Your strategy has to change immediately. Forget the quick phone calls, they leave no record.
No proof.
Exactly. You need to switch entirely to formal written communication, dated emails, maybe even certified letters if things are serious. You are deliberately building a paper trail.
Why is that trail so crucial?
Because if you end up needing to complain to a housing authority or go to small claims court later, that dated written communication is your evidence. It proves you told them, when you told them, what you told them, and critically, that they didn't fix it properly.
Okay, so you're writing formally. What specific C1 words do you use to convey the seriousness beyond just saying, I'm really annoyed?
You start by stating the pattern. Be specific. This is the third time the kitchen sink has backed up in the last 2 months, or this marks the fourth instance of heating failure since December 1st. Establish that history clearly.
Documenting the recurrence.
Yep.
Got it. Then
you use the big one. Habitability, you state clearly. This recurring failure significantly impacts the habitability of my apartment. As we discussed, that's the legal term that grabs their attention. It says this isn't just inconvenient, it's potentially breaching the core terms of the lease and housing law.
Okay, habitability, what next? You can't just state the problem, you need a solution.
Right, you shift from describing the symptom to demanding a proper diagnosis and cure. Don't just ask for someone to fix it, you request a specific type of professional. I request that you dispatch a certified plumber to diagnose the root cause of this ongoing issue and implement a permanent solution. Or a certified HVAC technician for heating. You're demanding expertise, not just another temporary patch-up.
Root cause and permanent solution.
I like those.
Sounds like you mean business.
It does. And finally, you need to create accountability. You request a timeline.
How do you phrase that?
Tie it back to the habitability issue. Given the impact on habitability, please provide me with a written confirmation and a specific timeline for the completion of this permanent repair within e.g. 24 or 48 hours.
So the package is document the frequency, state the impact on habitability, demand a root cause diagnosis and permanent solution from a certified pro, and request a firm timeline.
Exactly. When a landlord sees those phrases together, third failure, habitability, root cause, permanent solution, timeline, they know this isn't a standard request. It signals you know your rights and you're documenting their potential failure to uphold them.
It forces a more serious, hopefully more competent response.
It absolutely should. The potential cost of ignoring a documented habitability complaint is usually far higher than the cost of just fixing the damn thing properly the first time.
Okay, but what if it's a huge company, one of those places with automated systems? Does sending a fancy email with habitability actually get past the bots?
That's a really valid point. And honestly, maybe sometimes it doesn't immediately get flagged by a human, but, and this is critical, it doesn't matter in terms of protecting yourself.
How so?
Because you've still created the evidence, you sent the formal, dated, specific notice using the correct terminology. If their automated system fails to escalate it or act appropriately, that failure is their liability, not yours. You did your part. The paper trail is your shield, regardless of their internal processes.
Okay, the evidence is the key no matter what. Makes sense. Let's apply this C1 thinking to the noisy neighbor situation. Let's say you're polite, would you mind? Didn't work. The late night cello concerts continue.
Right. At this point, you stop dealing with the neighbor directly, it's failed. Your communication now goes straight to the landlord or property manager.
And the angle is different now, isn't it? It's not just they're being annoying.
No. You frame it as a breach of the lease agreement and door building rules. Most leases have clauses about quiet hours or prohibiting nuisances that disturb other tenants. You're basically saying, this tenant is violating the rules you set, and it's impacting my rights under my lease with you.
So how do you phrase that formally in C1 language?
First, you briefly mention your prior attempt, show you were reasonable. Despite my attempt to resolve this amicably with the tenant and unit neighbor's number on dates, the excessive noise has unfortunately continued.
Establishes you tried the nice way first, then
Then you bring in the legal concept. Quiet enjoyment, you state. This persistent noise during late hours constitutes a significant infringement upon my right to the quiet enjoyment of my property.
Quiet enjoyment. What exactly does that entail legally? Is it a right to complete silence?
Not absolute silence, no. You have to tolerate normal sounds of apartment living, footsteps overhead, maybe some daytime construction nearby. But quiet enjoyment is a core tenant right, often explicitly stated or implied in every lease. It means the right to live in your home without unreasonable, ongoing disturbances, especially those caused by neighbors violating lease rules. Chronic late-night noise definitely falls under that.
And you connect it to the lease.
Yes. You add something like a right, which is a fundamental covenant stipulated in our lease agreement. Using covenant adds that extra legal weight. You're reminding them it's part of the contract they wrote.
Okay, so you framed it legally. What do you ask the landlord to do?
You formally request their intervention. I request that you formally intervene in this matter and take appropriate action to enforce the lease terms regarding noise disturbances with the tenant in unit neighbor's number.
You're putting the responsibility squarely on them to enforce their own rules.
Exactly, but just sending that letter isn't quite enough to make it watertight, is it?
You need the proof, the evidence.
Precisely. This is where the detailed log becomes absolutely essential. You need to attach it to your formal complaint.
What makes a log detailed enough to be taken seriously? Just scribbling times in a notebook.
That's a start, but you need more rigor. For each incident, record the date, the exact time the noise started and stopped, what the noise was, loud music, shouting, heavy banging, and maybe briefly, the impact on you, prevented sleep, interrupted work call.
Okay, specifics matter. How do you make that log feel undeniable? How do you timestamp it effectively?
Don't just rely on handwritten notes you keep to yourself. After each incident, or maybe daily, type up the log entry and email it to yourself. Or even better, send a brief factual email to the property manager right after a significant incident occurs, even if it's 3 a.m. Just documenting that the loud party in Unit X is ongoing at 3:15 a.m.
Why email?
Because the email server creates an independent third-party timestamp. It proves you documented the issue at that time. It's much harder to dismiss than a handwritten note you could have written anytime. Some people even use basic sound meter apps on their phones to get a general idea of decibel levels, though usually the pattern, timing, and nature of the noise are more legally relevant than the exact volume.
So the C1 strategy for noise is try resolving it politely first. If that fails, formally complain to the landlord using quiet enjoyment and referencing the lease. And crucially, back it all up with a detailed, timestamped log sent via email.
You got it. You make the complaint impossible for them to ignore because you've provided the legal framing and the verifiable evidence. You're making it their problem to solve, as it should be.
All right, we've navigated the tricky parts of living there. Now let's talk about the end game, moving out strategically. This is, sadly, where things can often get contentious over the security deposit.
Yeah, it's a common friction point. Landlords trying to deduct for things they shouldn't, but a strategic tenant can manage this process to maximize their chances of getting every penny back.
And like before, it starts with documentation, right? The formal notice to vacate.
Absolutely. We covered the basic script earlier, but the C1 upgrade makes it even more protective.
How so?
You make the notice itself a shield. You explicitly reference the lease terms within the notice, something like, please accept this as my formal written notice to vacate the premises at address, effective move-out date. This notice is provided in accordance with the EG 30-day or 60-day notice period, explicitly outlined in Section EG 15B of our lease agreement, which was signed on date lease signed.
I see. You're stating up front, I know the rules. Here's the specific clause. I am following them exactly.
Precisely. It preempts any potential argument later that you didn't give enough notice or the right kind of notice. You've documented your compliance right there in the notice itself.
Smart. Okay, now for the C1 pro tip you mentioned, the one that can really save hassle and money, the pre-move out inspection. What's that about?
This isn't the final walkthrough. This is something you proactively request before that, maybe a week or two before you actually move out completely.
What's the timing logic?
Ideally, you've packed up most of your stuff, so the condition of the apartment is pretty clear, but before you've done the final deep clean. This gives you time to fix anything they point out.
Okay, so how do you ask for this? You don't want to sound demanding.
No, you frame it collaboratively. Something like, to help ensure a smooth handover and facilitate the prompt return of my full security deposit, I'd appreciate the opportunity to schedule a preliminary walkthrough with you sometime around Fapravika. Suggested date range. This would give me a chance to address any minor issues you might notice before the final inspection.
So you're positioning it as being helpful, making their job easier too.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is it basically forces them to give you a repair list in advance.
Ah, so if the landlord points out, say, a scuff mark on the wall or a dusty ceiling fan during this preliminary check.
You note it down, you thank them, and then you fix it before the final inspection. You clean the fan, you touch up the scuff mark.
And because you fixed it based on their own feedback?
They can't legitimately deduct for it later. You've addressed their concerns. It neutralizes potential deductions before they even become formal claims. It's a brilliant preventative strategy.
That really is clever. It puts the onus back on them slightly and makes the whole process less adversarial, hopefully.
It should. But let's face it, sometimes, even with all that preparation, you gave perfect notice, did the pre-inspection, fixed everything, left the place spotless, a landlord might still try to make unfair deductions.
Like charging for that tiny pinhole where you hung a picture? Or for carpet looking a bit faded after you lived there 3 years?
Exactly. Things that are just normal life happening in an apartment. This is where you need to formally dispute the deduction using evidence and legal concepts.
Okay, how do you write that dispute letter?
Firmly, factually. First, clearly state your purpose. I am writing to formally dispute the deduction of amount from my security deposit for stated reason, e.g., wall damage. Be specific about what you're challenging.
Got it. Then you bring in your evidence.
Yes. Your primary weapon here is often that move-in inventory report you diligently prepared when you first moved in.
Ah, connecting back to the very beginning. So crucial. Remind us what makes that report really strong.
It needs to be thorough. Dated photos, maybe even video of every room, wall, floor, appliance, fixture before you moved your stuff in. Note any existing scratches, marks, stains, damages.
And the key is?
Getting it time-stamped and ideally sharing it with the landlord right at the start. Emailing it to them creates that shared, dated record of the property's initial condition. So if they try to charge you for a carpet stain that's clearly visible in your move-in photos,
their claim collapses instantly. You have proof it was already there.
Exactly. But what if the damage is technically new, but it's really minor, like those pinholes or slight wear on the countertop near the sink?
Yeah. How do you argue against those?
You introduce the crucial legal concept of normal wear and tear. You state in your letter, the minor marks, pinholes fading you noted fall under the category of normal wear and tear, consistent with number years of tenancy and as such are not considered damage chargeable to the tenant under state law or lease agreement.
Okay, normal wear and tear. That sounds important. Can you give us some clear examples of what usually counts as that versus actual chargeable damage?
Sure. Normal wear and tear is the expected decline in condition from ordinary everyday use. Think minor scuffs on walls, especially near doors or where furniture was, faded paint or carpet from sunlight, worn spots in high-traffic carpet areas, maybe some loose grout in the bathroom tiles over time. A few small nail holes for pictures are generally accepted too. Landlords expect to do routine painting and carpet cleaning between tenants. They can't charge you for that baseline refurbishment.
Okay, that's wear and tear. What's actual damage they can charge for?
Damage is usually due to negligence, accidents, or abuse. Big things like large holes punched in walls, deep scratches or gouges in hardwood floors, heavily stained or burned carpets that need replacing, not just cleaning, broken windows or mirrors, unauthorized paint jobs they have to fix, damage from pets if they weren't allowed, or cause specific destruction beyond normal wear. Basically, stuff that goes beyond just living there.
Gotcha. So by using the phrase normal wear and tear, you're putting the burden on the landlord to prove the issue is more than that.
Precisely. You're asserting the legal standard. They then have to justify why this specific item constitutes actual damage beyond normal depreciation. Combined with your move-in report for pre-existing conditions, it creates a very strong case for getting that deduction reversed.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Your entire tenancy, managed strategically with documentation from that first repair request email using the right terms to the move-in photos, the noise log, the pre-move-out check, and finally disputing deductions using normal wear and tear. That's all connected.
That's perhaps the single biggest takeaway from all the sources we looked at. Diligence and documentation at every stage build your defense for the final stage. The C1 strategies aren't isolated tricks. They're part of a continuous evidence-based approach. #tag outro.
Well, that brings us pretty much to the end of this deep dive. We've covered the essentials for everyday stuff and really gotten into the advanced C1 level strategies for mastering that rental relationship.
Yeah, let's do a quick recap of those advanced takeaways for you, the listener. Remember that specific protective language, for those recurring problems.
Ditch the simple requests. Use recurring issue, demand a permanent solution, and justify it legally using the concept of habitability.
Right, for persistent neighbor issues after trying the polite route.
Escalate formally to the landlord. Assert your right to quiet enjoyment. Reference the lease covenant, and crucially, back it all up with that detailed log, ideally timestamped via email.
Perfect. And for the strategic move out.
Be proactive. Request that pre-move out inspection to identify and fix issues early.
And if they still try unfair deductions?
Dispute them formally in writing. Use your move-in inventory report as evidence for pre-existing conditions and argue that minor issues are just normal wear and tear, not chargeable damage.
Exactly. So what's the bottom line here?
I think it's about shifting your perspective. Mastering this kind of precise, evidence-based language, it really gives you the power to handle almost any rental situation with confidence. You're not just passively hoping things go well.
You become an active, informed participant in the contract. You know the terms, you know the language, you know how to document things. It helps ensure your tenancy is fair, hopefully peaceful, and definitely more financially secure.
That knowledge really is leverage, isn't it? Understanding what words like habitability or quiet enjoyment truly mean and backing them up with proof, that changes the whole dynamic.
It absolutely does. It ensures you're not leaving your rights or your money on the table just because you didn't know the right way to frame things or the importance of keeping records.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of tenant strategies. We really hope you feel better equipped now to navigate your rental journey with confidence. Go out there and assert your rights, respectfully but firmly,